And your place of birth?
Faridpur, Bangladesh.
Okay, we just ask you then first of all about pre-migration. What do you remember about your early childhood memories from where you lived and your family relationships?
Well, my mother died when I was about 6. And I think before that, I had a brother and a sister. They died in quick succession. I don't remember how. I don't remember anything about them. And my mother died of childbirth. My father when I was about 13. And he died of smallpox. But I had a very happy childhood. It's a joint family system, an extended family.
Yeah.
And we are quite well off, landed property. So I was spoiled both with love and plenty of care and affection. And I didn't really need anything. I got everything I needed. So I had a very happy childhood. My grandmother, my father's mother, was alive, and she was absolutely everything to me. I had uncles and aunts, loads of cousins, but I was the oldest in my generation, so everybody adored me.
Yes. Okay, and what do you remember about education?
I went to local school, which is a private school. I remember I never went to a primary school because it wasn't very good, so I had a tutor who used to come at home. Then went to a high school, and I had very happy, how many years I can't remember, 3 to 8 years I think, and terrific memory. I was the head of school, head boy in the school, and many clubs, etc. So again, very happy memory.
And what qualifications did you get at school?
It's matric, equivalent to your GCSE.
Yeah.
Then I went to college. It's like sixth form college here, but it was combined with a degree. You could do a degree there, and 2 years. And again, extremely happy memory. I live in a hostel on the college premises. And then I did my intermediate. That's the equivalent to your A level. Then I went to university.
What did you study at university?
I studied English, main, as an honours degree, 3 years, and then another year. It's a master's degree in English. And then before I finished my exam, in fact, before I even sat, 6 months before, I was offered a job as a university lecturer by one of the college principals.
Excellent.
So I finished my exam and went to work the next day.
Lovely.
And then from there, I was invited by another college principal, and it used to be called East Pakistan Cadet College. It's like you Eton here.
Yeah.
The only public school in our country in those days. So I was invited to be a lecturer in English. And then when I got there by the principal, I was given housemaster's job, and also vice principal, who was head of English, left, so I became head of English very quickly.
Excellent.
So again, 3 years, extreme hard work. Because as a housemaster, you are on duty until about 10 o'clock. Until the boys went to bed, the lights were out, you couldn't leave. Then you had to go into your bungalow, which was within the premises. It's a beautiful place at the foot of the hills, overlooking the Bay of Bengal. Terrific place.
And did you have a religious upbringing?
Yes, I come from a Muslim family.
Mm-hmm.
And I was brought up in that tradition. But most of my friends are Hindus, because it's quite a large number of Hindus we have. In fact, my best friends were Hindus.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my teachers, in fact, all of them except one, were Hindus. So I read books about Hinduism, and all the festivals the Hindus used to celebrate, we are part of it, we enjoyed it. And so I had this multicultural upbringing in many ways, and access to different culture than to my own. So I have that natural affinity with other faiths and other cultures, and I developed respect for different cultures, different religions. And I must say that perhaps I could say that I know more about Hinduism than many Hindus practicing in this country because of my exposure to that through my childhood education, my teachers and friends.
Okay. Were you employed when you lived there, or you already talked about your employment?
Yes. I was employed from the day I finished my exam. The next day I started. And then I decided to come to Britain because my subject was English.
Yeah.
So I thought, since I was teaching English, I must know about English culture a bit more and get a British degree and then go back and teach more effectively. So I gave up my job, came here without anything, with an employment voucher.
Yeah.
But that was rather rash because if I waited another year, the British Council were going to give me a scholarship to come. But I didn't have the patience. I decided to come early. And I didn't want to come just for a year. The British Council scholarship was mainly for a year. So I came and got a job within 2 weeks as a teacher, primary school teacher. I had no idea about teaching in those days. But I got it. And it was in Ealing, Southall to be precise. But I had very good 3 years of experience there. I enjoyed every minute of it. Hard work, but I enjoyed it. Then I met one of the professors that I knew through his books in Bangladesh, because I was very interested in English phonetics. And Professor Gimson was his name. And his book we had to read. And while I was teaching, he came to give lectures on a course which I attended, sent by my school for a week. And we exchanged ideas and we had a conversation. And then he asked me what I'd like to do, what I was planning. I said I'd like to do a British degree, preferably in phonetics. And he's invited me to go and see him in the university. And he offered me a place on an MPhil course, just like that. And usually people who come from my country of origin have to go through a qualifying examination and attend special English language classes before they're accepted. But I was very lucky. But it was very hard work because there were no courses in the evenings, so I had to think of different ways of doing courses. Some of the courses they were running meant for English students, native speakers of English. I attended those, but that didn't really allow me to complete my MPhil. So in the end, I decided to give up my full-time teaching job. I took a part-time job as a research assistant in one of the colleges. But again, that wasn't sufficient because even if it's part-time work, your work was occupying your time, so I couldn't do justice. And then the British Council offered me a scholarship for a year, believe it or not. And so that allowed me to do full-time 1 year. Then in the meantime, I was looking for jobs. So I applied to many places. But Wolverhampton was the one that invited me for an interview. And it was the College of Education for mature students. And it used to be where the Crown Court and the combined courts are, and the roundabout. That's where the college was. So I came for interview. There were 5 candidates, 4 whites, and I was the only non-white candidate. I didn't think they would consider me. It was in 1969, soon after Mr. Powell's famous speech. So I didn't think I had any hope of getting that job. Then at the end of the day, when that job was offered to me, I was delighted. And that's how I came to Wolverhampton. And I've been here ever since.
Excellent.
31 years is a long time. Longer than anywhere else in my life. And so this is my home.
What year did you move to England?
1964.
64. So you first came to live, whereabouts did you say you first?
I came to London.
To London.
I used to live in Ealing Common. Lived there for 5 years.
Yeah.
Then came to Wolverhampton.
And why did you decide to go to London first of all?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, when you come with an employment voucher, you've got to give an address. And I had some friends who were doing PhDs at the university.
Yeah.
My friends from college, university. So I gave their address and they found me some accommodation. So I applied for jobs within that area, London and the surrounding areas. And I got a job with the London Borough of Ealing. So I moved to Ealing Common from North London, where they used to live.
And did you come alone to
Yes.
Britain?
Yes.
And what were your first thoughts when you... Did you come by aeroplane, did you?
Yes.
Yeah. What were your first thoughts?
My experience in London, again, very interesting. I was expecting my friend to be at the airport, and he was not there. And then I came to Victoria. In those days, British Airways used to offer a bus service to Victoria free. So I came there and I thought they might be there, and they're not there. So I took a taxi. I came with £10, would you believe it? And that's the maximum you could bring in those days. Most people were allowed to bring only £3 or something. But because I knew the governor of the State Bank, his son was a student at the college, when he heard that I was coming, and he said, I'd give you the maximum. So £10 was the maximum. Anyway, so that the taxi driver took £1 from my £10. And then when I was at the door of my friend's accommodation, the landlord opened the door and said, are you Mr. Rashid? I said, yes, I am. There's a telephone call for you. So I went in, and my friend was at the airport. They're caught in traffic jams, so phoned me from the Heathrow airport. So I never felt homesick. I was very happy in London. And because I had a definite purpose, I came for a British degree. I did not come with the intention of staying. So this is why I don't think, I noticed anything that I should be worried about. And I didn't feel any discrimination of any sort for whatever I did. And I was lucky in all respects from that point of view. However, when I applied for jobs, for better jobs, not as teachers, I found it difficult because I was not getting any interviews at all. And I thought it may be my subject, because, as a non-native speaker of English, you're offering English as your subject. So when Wolverhampton gave me the job as a college of education lecturer, I was absolutely thrilled to bits. But coming back to your question again, London was so big, and the houses, the terraced houses, didn't interest me at all. I thought they're like go-downs, houses in Dhaka and other places in Bangladesh, or detached houses, otherwise in the country. They're separate thatched houses, tin roof houses, but not like these. People didn't live in our country like that. So that was a little bit disappointing. Otherwise, it was so exciting to see London for the first time in your life.
Okay. Moving on to when you were actually settled here. So you talked about employment, education. When you moved to Wolverhampton, did you find the housing was okay to find a house?
Well, before I answer that, I think during the last few years of my life in London, I got involved with community relations, and I saw some of the problems that the communities felt, suffered or experienced. One of the things that I felt people needed to do is find out why there was discrimination, why people are feeling that they're not accepted. I had no idea, because I never really read about these things. So maybe I thought people should find out for themselves what's wrong, and find out from the host communities what's wrong, so that something could be done about it. So I used to attend meetings, conferences, but I never got the real answer. Another thing that I felt I could do is to organize some English classes for adults, and through the Community Relations Council of Ealing Borough and through some voluntary help, I organized classes, English classes, home tuition for Asian adults, and that worked extremely well before I came to Wolverhampton. When I came to Wolverhampton, I was the only non-white member of staff in the whole college.
Really?
Yeah, about 60 odd people. And I was accepted with open arms by everybody. I didn't feel anything at all. People are very friendly, very welcoming and warm. And accommodation-wise, I had no problem, temporary. But when I started buying a house, it was on the Compton Road, just on this side of the university. I don't know whether you've noticed the townhouses, it's 3-level houses. They're new in those days, and I put in for one, and I was offered one of the houses. Then I went to Bangladesh in 1970. When I came back, the houses are half complete, not completely ready for occupation. So I tried to find out what was wrong. And my solicitor was writing letters and letters and letters, but no answer. The builders were not completing it. Then in the end, my principal intervened. He either wrote or telephoned. And he said, unless you do it within such and such time, I shall take the matter further. Then in the end, we did get the occupation of the house. What I found out in the end happened is the builders had difficulty in selling those houses initially, and they wanted to make sure that every house was occupied before it was sold to a non-white person. So that was the reason. So that's my first encounter with prejudice, real prejudice.
Have you had experiences since then of racial prejudice?
Not really, I could say. But neighbors were extremely good. In fact, we lived in that house for 7 years, and they didn't want us to leave. They're not happy with some of the white tenants in the area. They would rather have them moved than us. But we moved into a bigger house. So we moved, but we made good friends.
Good. You say us, is that yourself?
And my wife.
Do you have any children?
Yes, one daughter. She's now 20, doing her first year in medicine in London.
Is she?
Yes.
And how's she finding that?
She's happy, enjoying it. Very happy in London.
Good. And have you been able to carry on your worship since you've come to live here?
Yes.
You have?
Yes. Well, I got involved with the Wolverhampton Interfaith Group. I don't know whether you know about that group. In 1974, there were quite a few Methodist ministers and some Anglican ministers. They were thinking of an organization, Interfaith. And one Reverend Platten rang me up one day. He used to be a vicar or minister, I don't know what to call them, at Park Village somewhere, Methodist Church. He would like to come and see me. I don't know how he got my name. And then he came to college to see me for about 10 minutes or so. Then I think we spent about an hour and a half or 2 hours discussing the idea of an interfaith group. And I was absolutely delighted. Because at the college I felt people did not know very much about our cultures of some of the children that we had in our schools. And when I mooted the idea of some sort of basic course for students, it was not well received. So when this idea of an interfaith organization was mooted, I was absolutely thrilled to bits. And then that interfaith group was organized, and I became the first vice president, and Reverend Platten became the president. And soon after, he decided that he wanted to go, and so I became president. And that organization is running extremely well for the last 25, 26 years, making, I think, very constructive contribution to the understanding of different communities and faiths in Wolverhampton. It is now recognized as an advisory body by the police, the profession service, the local authority, and many other organizations. And this organization also helped organize many interfaith groups in the country.
That's good, isn't it? Because often at schools we don't get to learn about other faiths, etc. So that's good.
So I have no problem about my worship. Quite a few mosques in the town, and one of the one near the roundabout in Stafford Road, Waterloo Road.
Yeah.
So that one, it was there was a church there before, I understand, and the church authorities sold that on the understanding that a mosque would be built there. So one of the Muslims, who was a very pious man, he bought it and then started worshipping in the vicarage. They're still doing it. The new mosque is being built. So for the last 30 years, I've been going there. There's been no problem. I don't think people have encountered any difficulties with regard to worship here. Having said that, the Hindus didn't have a temple on the Penn Road, near the Safeway. Have you seen it? It was difficult to get planning permission in those days. So the interfaith group helped fighting the cause for the Hindus and got ultimately planning permission. And I think some of the other communities, like the Ravidasis, they had difficulty in finding place of worship. Again, the interfaith group fought for them, and they ultimately found. And I think they have an excellent temple in Dudley Road somewhere. So those things have now disappeared. People can fight their own corners, fight for their own rights. So the interfaith group is not required from that point of view.
Are you still president of the...
I was president, but then the Bishop of Wolverhampton came. Not this one, he's now the Bishop of Bristol, Barry Rogerson. When he came to Wolverhampton as the first Wolverhampton Bishop, we invited him to be the president, and I became vice president again. And I've been ex officio, or whatever you call it, president ever since, vice president ever since. The bishop has been president. And we have a chairman elected for 2 or 3 years, and it's changed. But the president and vice president have been unchanged over the years.
Okay. And what do you do in your spare time?
I do community work, interfaith group. I'm a governor of Royal School, Wolverhampton. I'm also the foundation council of the the St. Peter's School and King's School. And I also attend meetings, the Race Equality Council. I used to be one of the executive committee members before I joined the council. And also I used to be the chair of the education panel for quite a few years. Anything that people need with my own communities, cultural functions, etc., I get involved. So that's it. Do a bit of gardening, a bit of reading.
Haven't got much time for anything else. Okay. How do you think your life would have been different if you had either stopped in Bangladesh or if you'd have just come here for a year and then gone back?
Difficult to predict. Either I would have been killed during the liberation movement, or I would have become either a professor or principal of a college if I still remained in education. I'd have topped any of the areas. But here, I don't think I'd go beyond what I have been now. There is subtle racism in this society. Thus far, no further. But it's changing gradually.
Yeah.
It'll take some time, probably. Still.
Have you been back there since?
Sometimes, yes. Yeah. Quite a few times. Not very frequently. Because it's quite expensive to go.
Yeah. Do you still have family?
Not a very close family, no. Because, as I said, my parents died very young. And I've got cousins. But my wife has. She's at the moment in Bangladesh, actually. She's got brothers and sister. Her mother died a few years ago. So from my own blood connection, not very close family, but my wife has. But I still feel very close to them. My extended family, cousins, etc. Very close.
Would you ever consider going back to live there?
Even if I did, originally that was my idea. I didn't intend to stay here, but circumstances changed. The country was dismembered. All sorts of things happened. So I couldn't really go back. But now that I've got only one daughter, I couldn't cut myself off from her. Whoever she is, I have to be. If she, say, got married and decided to live in Bangladesh, probably I should go. But again, readjustment is not that simple. It's quite difficult. But I'll manage. But if she stays here, then I don't think I could go back, really.
Are you happy to stay here?
Yes, yes, oh yes. I still feel maybe this country did not need me, could use me, and has used me. But Bangladesh needed me. But at the time when it needed me, I was here. I don't think they need me now. And I could do very little in my old age, except being there in your own country of origin. I still feel very close to the country. But I do not feel that I don't belong here. This is, as I said, this has been my home. Wolverhampton is my adopted home. And I love this town. There's a lot to be said for this town. But in my heart of hearts, yes, I'd like to go back. Whether I'd be happy if I go back, I don't know. I don't think I will be. Because my friends are no longer there. The friends that I've made in this country will be here. So it's not that simple. Very difficult. But I'd like to visit. Even if I did go back, I would come visit here. Or if I stay here, I'd visit Bangladesh. I'd like to visit every year. But it's not that simple. It's quite expensive to do that.
What changes have you seen in Wolverhampton since you've lived here?
There's a lot of physical change. This was a very ugly approach from the station. So it's a tremendous change. And it's getting better. And also I think the atmosphere is more relaxed. There was prejudice, even in the early 70s. People are not that friendly, but it has changed. When I look back, I have not experienced any other places really. When I hear about other places from other people, I think Wolverhampton has done extremely well. The understanding between communities is great. So I think from that point of view, although Wolverhampton has a very bad press, it doesn't deserve it. It's much better than what people think. But I think people of Wolverhampton must begin to assert themselves and love this town and speak for it. Then other people will begin to do that.
Okay. What do you feel are the main contributions that you've made and other people coming from other countries to live in Britain have made to life in Wolverhampton?
When I moved over from the Polytechnic, I came as an inspector for humanities with particular responsibility for multicultural education. And Wolverhampton Council did not have a syllabus for religious education of its own. It was using Cambridge syllabus produced in 1930s. Even Cambridgeshire changed it. So that's one thing I felt I needed to do because RE was my responsibility. So after 3.5 years of hard work, again through the involvement of the interfaith group, I was able to produce Wolverhampton's first RE syllabus. I don't think we would have been able to do that without the interfaith movement, because according to law, you've got to have a standing conference which must be composed of 4 different categories: local authority, Church of England, other denominations, and also teacher trade unions. But other denominations, we are able to include Hindus, Muslims, and the Sikhs. Now, we could not have done it without the interfaith group. So that's the first thing. We have revised that syllabus again, so it's the second one. So the 2 syllabuses that I've given to Wolverhampton. The other thing is, when I was lecturing in the college, I felt children need to learn their mother tongue. They should have literacy in the mother tongue so that they could communicate with their grandparents. But I had no way of introducing it. One day I was at a conference, and one of the people like Tiwana, Bobby, said that he'd have very good education in this country. But unfortunately, he was not literate in his own mother tongue, and he blamed the system here. So I took a vow then, if I ever have an opportunity to do anything, I shall introduce mother tongue teaching. And soon after becoming an officer of the council, I started discussion with communities and the council and officers in the department. And ultimately, I was able to introduce mother tongue teaching on a Saturday morning from 10 to 12 for all children who wanted to learn the mother tongue, every child. And I think Wolverhampton is the only local authority in the whole of the country that did it that way, and still the best program, best project in the country. Because we said that your mother tongue, the message is your mother tongue is important because that's your personality. If you want to learn it, we will offer it free of charge. Any child, any language, not just Asian language. Because we also feel that from education point of view, if a child can learn, can be literate in the mother tongue, his or her achievement in other subjects, including English, would improve, would be better. So I had no difficulty in accepting that challenge and also convinced the council. The leader of the council now, Norman Davis, was chair of education. He was very enthusiastic and very supportive. Without his support, I don't think we could have done it. So I'm very proud of that. We are still doing that. And I think we are still the only country in the country doing a project like that. There are quite a few other things that I have done, the interfaith group. But I think my major contribution is in the education department, is the cultural understanding, multicultural approach to education, combating racism. I have also given policy on equal opportunities, policy on multicultural education, tackling racism, that is guidance to schools. Then Sikh children were not able to go to school wearing turban and wearing kirpan. We have got policies, clear-cut policies on those matters. So I feel quite pleased with myself, with my humble contribution.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to ask? We've gone through all the questions that I've got.
No, I think you've covered everything. All I can say is there is a long way to go yet. There is still a lot of racism in society. It will take many, many more years and hard work on the part of young people. I've done my bit. It's now your turn.
I think, as you say, like education policies are the main things to look at first of all.
Yes, that is true. Education policy is not enough. I think the implementation of the policy, changing attitudes, recruiting more people from different cultural backgrounds at every walk of life, I think then people will change. And when people grow up together, rubbing shoulders with one another, things will change. It will evolve. But to expedite matters, you need to take some positive action, which we are trying to do. But I think everybody, whoever has an opportunity, should do it. I think this project is a good one, and this should also help people understand.
I've learned a lot from
I'm sure you have. And it will help you when you become a teacher.
Right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.